Have you ever seen those Twitter bots that get mentioned and then respond to tweets? Some are helpful and some just want to watch the world burn. Here's an example. Cat Videos for You does not understand the tweet up above, and so it mentions, explain this, Bob. And then Bob is here to explain, comes through and says, the Avengers are a group of superheroes who save the city from danger. And so Bob explains the tweet up above. This is a prime use case for an application powered by a language model that really anybody can build. So we're going to build one ourselves. Let's see the final product. I recently tweeted a tweet about bounties, wondering if businesses could actually run off them. And then I mentioned the Silicon Oracle, which is the bot that we made. And he responded with, bounties can be a great way to incentivize work, but building a business solely on them is like trying to power a rocket with a potato battery. So there's a little bit of sass in there involved as well. So together, we're going to build out Silicon Oracle from scratch. But my goal is really to inspire you to take this for your own use case and start to add in more functionality so that you can provide more value to folks. Now, there is a word of caution here, because with great power comes a great responsibility. And just because you can make this Twitter bot doesn't mean you have to. I highly recommend that you go and find a use case that you want to do first before you start spamming the Twitter sphere with a bunch of garbage. All right, like many good projects, I want to lay out this video with a diagram so we all know where we're going here. We're first going to do some prompt work within a Jupyter notebook, and this is just so we can iterate on the right prompt and how we want to do it there. Then we're going to jump into VS Code, and I'm going to review the whole app, but that'll just be a speed walkthrough since this isn't really a tutorial on building the entire application. We're going to push our code to GitHub, and then we're going to use Railway to actually do our hosting. And Railway is a dead simple way to host your code and run your scripts on a recurring basis, which is really nice. And then finally, we're going to check our output on the Twitter side. And as we do things, we will update with our green checkmark of success. All right, let's dive into this prompt work that we have here. So going over to the Jupyter notebook, we're first going to work with our imports. So I'm going to import a chat model today because we're going to bounce in between 3.5 and GPT-4 to see what works better for us, as well as some prompt templates, which are going to help us out. So as I initialize my LLM here, chat OpenAI, I'm going to set a temperature of 3. Usually this is just 0, but because we're doing a creative task here, I'm kind of bumping it up to see how we like it. You should play around with this for your use case and see what you like. I'm going to start with GPT 3.5 Turbo here so we can see how that goes. And this is actually the full prompt that we're going to work towards, but I want to start iteratively and start small so you can kind of see my thought process as to why I picked certain decisions here. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a function that makes it easy to pass an LLM. So whether it's 3.5 or 4, and then we're going to say the mentioned parent tweet text. So what's going to happen is we're going to mention our bot on Twitter, but we don't want to get that mentioned text. We want to actually get the text of the conversation, which is the very first tweet up at the top here. And so we're going to pass in that raw text, which is just going to be a string. And now with our system template, remember, these are the instructions that you put within the system message as opposed to the human message down below. Write me a response to the user's sentence. And then with a human message template, we're going to pass in the text. And this text is going to be the tweet text that we pass in up above. So what I'm going to do is I just went and grabbed this tweet off of Twitter. It looked like a good one. I'm going to say tweet. Then I'm going to say, hey, go generate me a response using the language model that we picked above, and then this tweet. So let's see what the first response is. All right, so we got a response here. It's understandable that you're seeking insight into the defensibility of AI-first SaaS companies. So the AI is being kind of caring, which is nice, but this is not a tweet response that we need. This is way too long, so we need to fix our prompt that we have here. The first thing I want to do is I want to adjust the tone and the role that the AI is taking. I always like to put a role for the AI so it knows who it is and what it's doing here. So I'm actually just going to replace this entire thing with, you're an incredibly wise and smart mad scientist from Silicon Valley. Your goal is to give a concise, so to shorten it up, prediction. Predictions are actually more interesting than just regular opinions or comments here, so this is good. In response to a piece of text from the user. All right, let's run this one and see how it updates. Great. Based on my experience and knowledge, I predict that SaaS companies that are AI first will need to focus on developing proprietary algorithms. Okay, interesting. So now it has a bit more of an opinionated voice. This is still too long, and it doesn't have as much tone as I want. So let's go ahead and see what else we can do. Next, I'm going to tell it about response tone. So let me go ahead and put this in here. And with response tone, I'm going to say your prediction should be given in an active voice and be opinionated. I found that if it doesn't, then it's just going to be a passive voice and kind of in the gray area, trying to please all parties and be Switzerland. It's not necessarily what we want. Your tone should be serious with a hint of wit and sarcasm. Let's see what we have here. Well, it's not surprising that most SaaS founders can't explain the defensibility of the first AI-first approach. After all, it takes a certain level of intelligence. Okay, so there's a little bit more of a conversational tone, which isn't bad, but this is still way too long. Let's see what else we have here. I'm going to fix the response format here. So we talked about the tone, but not necessarily the format. So respond in under 200 characters, respond in one short sentence, do not respond with emojis. So I know that the Twitter limit is longer than 200 characters. The language model never really follows it to a T anyway, but 200 is short enough that it knows to go pretty small here. One short sentence, do not respond with emojis. You know what, I want to say 2 or less short sentences. Let's see how that goes for us. And let's go ahead and run this. Sounds like they're not really AI first. True AI first companies have a clear competitive advantage from their use of AI. Okay, interesting. Not bad. Does it even talk most self-starters? Sounds like they're not AI first. Yeah, I would say maybe. The last thing that we'll do here is response content. So I want to give a bit more of a background context to this. And so include specific examples about old tech if they're relevant. And then just in case it doesn't know a certain answer, instead of saying, oh, I'm an AI bot and I don't know, I want to give it a default. So if you don't have an answer, say, sorry, my magic 8-ball isn't working right now. All right, let's run this. Sounds like they're just jumping on the AI bandwagon without a clear strategy. Okay, so it's a little bit on the grumpy side. It's not bad. It's kind of going that direction. I want to try this with GPT-4 to see how that goes, because 3.5 may not be following the directions as much as I want. Let me run this now. AI first SaaS founders, the modern day snake oil salesman. Defensibility, let us throw more buzzwords at you until you're too confused to question them. This is actually not so bad. It's a little bit dramatic, but it followed the directions and it's really following the tone as well. So I'm going to keep this combination of this tone and with GPT-4. All right, let's go back over to Data Indie. Our Scratch prompt work, that is all done. Nice. Let's take a look at the full app and see all the other pieces that come together. All right, so now we've jumped over VS Code and I've added in all the other things that we need in order to bring this bot to life. I'm going to do a speed walkthrough of this because the purpose of the tutorial is not necessarily this code. The important parts here are going to be getting your Twitter API keys. So if you head over to Twitter Developer, you can actually create your own project, and then you can get your API keys and you can insert those into your environment, or what I'll show you within the Railway app. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to remember state in between each one of these runs, because the method I'm choosing to do here as opposed to streaming is this bot will wake up every 5 to 10 minutes and it's going to check for all the new mentions that it has, and then it's going to check its database of mentions that it's already responded to, because I don't want to do multiple at a time. And the database I'm choosing to do with that is Airtable. Why? Because it's really easy and all you need is a single API key for that, as opposed to some of the more complicated authentication for Google. So we have our Airtable API keys, and in order to get those, you can just head over to your personal access token section of your Airtable developer, and you can go ahead and create those. Here's mine right here. Okay. And then as we go down here, we're going to have a class called a Twitter bot. And the reason why we do this is so that we have a lot of shared services that we want to use across functions. And this makes it a whole lot easier in order to do that. So we have our Twitter API, our Airtable API, and we have some stats, and we have our language model we're going to use, GPT-4 here, and we have a temperature of 0.5, so I bumped it up just a little bit. So the two big functions that are important here are going to be the generate response function. So let me take this exact prompt template that we had. I did a little bit of editing in between takes here, so awesome. So now we have that same exact prompt template that we're going to have, and then it's going to go through and it's going to generate an output for us, which is nice. But then the other really important part is going to be this respond to mention one. It's going to take the text that was the parent tweet text, so the conversation, meaning the text that it should be responding to, and then it's going to go ahead and generate a response for that. And then we're going to create a tweet. And the text is going to be the response text that we generated up above. And then we're going to do in reply to tweet ID is going to be the mention ID. So the mention ID is actually the tweet that did the mentioning of this bot in the first place. So it'll read the parent text, but it's going to respond to the mention, which is the important part. And then we just have some stats here. We're going to return, and I should put this out in another function, but we're just going to log on our Airtable the mention conversation tweet ID. This is so we don't double up the tweet text. This is just for me. It's not super necessary. And then just some other stats so I can do some light analytics on this and see how it's going. Another important function as well is we're going to respond to mentions. And so what this is going to do is it's going to go grab the mentions that it sees, but some of these will be duplicates and we'll have already responded to them. So we're going to go through each mention and we're going to see if we've already responded to it or if we haven't. Check if already responded. And if we haven't, then we're going to go ahead and respond to that mention. The last thing that I'll say here is there's a lot of ways to schedule this job and you can pick your poison on how you want to do it. The way I'm doing it is I'm having kind of like a master job function where where the bot is going to get created, and then it's going to execute those replies. And I'm going to use Python's schedule library in order to execute against this. Now, this isn't wonderful for production instances, but for quick and easy, and for having your recurring configuration within your script, it's pretty good. So I'm going to schedule every 5 minutes, and it is going to do the job, which is the job is up here, and this code is ready to push up to Railway. All right, then on that note, we are going to do a green checkbox by our full app. So in order to push up to Railway, we actually need to push to a GitHub repo, because Railway will read from a GitHub repo. Now you can go ahead and clone this one, links in the description if you need it. I'm going to show you how you would do this on your own after you would edit it. So imagine that you just edited your code like I just did, and I need to check this into Git. So I'm first going to do git status to make sure that I can confirm that the only file that I thought I edited is the actual one there. I'm going to say git add, just add everything, and then I'm going to git commit this with a message that says prompt updates, and then I'm going to git push origin main because I'm pushing to my remote repo, and my password, fabulous. And we just go ahead and push that code over there. And if we check GitHub, we can see that prompt updates is the most recent push. It happened just now. And if we go back over here, confirm the prompt is what we want it to. Yes, response tone, all that other good stuff there. And on that note, we're going to put a green checkbox by remote code hosting. So let's head over to Railway, and I'll show you how to do that there. All right, so over on the Railway side, you're going to have different projects, and these are kind of different areas where you can host different services or applications that you have. I'm going to go ahead and create a new project here, and I'm going to deploy from a GitHub repo. Now, I've already connected my GitHub, but if you haven't, you need to connect your GitHub that you're going to be using, and you're going to say, we'll go to the repo that you want. And then I'm going to say, I want to add variables first. The reason why I want to add variables first is because I have a lot of environment variables, and I did not push my environment file to GitHub, which of course is not, of course, the way you want to do it. And so when you have your environment variables here, you can input them one by one, or what you can do, which I like a little bit better, is you can go to the raw editor, and then you can say, hey, just copy and paste from your environment file and just paste them in right here, or your JSON, and it would get it. So I'm going to do that, and I'll see in just a sec. All right, so I just copied and pasted my environment variables over there, and you can see that they've all appeared in here. So now they'll be accessible within my script, which is a good thing. So if I go over to settings, then I'm going to take a look at some quick settings here. So we have automatic deployment. It's going to push from the main branch, which is what we want. Check suite, none of this, don't worry about this. Service name, Twitter reply bot, sounds great. Source repo looks great. For builder, what's cool is if you wanted to do a custom build, then you can put in some custom commands right here. But what's nice is that when this builds with Python, it says if you have a requirement.txt file, which if we check over in our GitHub, we do, which is nice. Then it's going to already automatically put pip install requirements for you. So you don't actually need to add anything extra, which is cool. Normally you would. And then for the start command, this is what command it needs to run after it's all done building. And in this case, it is going to be Python to call Python. And then it's going to be the name of our file. And let's go back over here. Python Twitter reply bot.py. Let's go ahead and lock that in. Replicas, okay, no. This all looks good, So if I go to deployments here, we see that we have an issue. Let's view these logs just real quick. No start command could be found. Okay, this is good. Oh, so it just needed an update for me. So it does a pretty good job of updating when it needs to. And if we go over to build logs, it just kicked off the build because I just updated that start command. So what it's doing here is it is actually saying, no, let's do a proper one. There we go. Now, if there's different deployments and depending on which one you do, but this one's building out. So if we go to the build logs here, we go up to the top, we can say that it started the install, which it did all the Python stuff, and then it did pip install requirements.txt, which I already uploaded and which is on nice there. And then the start command is the one I put in there beforehand, which is Python Twitter reply bot.py. We scroll down here, we can see it's uploading all the requirements, which is nice. Going through there, there's LangChain, sweet. And let's check out the bottom. Looks like the build time was great. It was only 36 seconds, which isn't so bad at all. And if we check these build logs, we can see that it pushed and it built, and the publish time was only 8 seconds, which is awesome. So now what we can do is we can head over to the deploy logs. And I actually inserted just a couple print statements throughout the script so that we would know what was happening and when it was. Let me check back with you in 5 minutes because the 5-minute timer just started according to our schedule, and I'll show you what the print statements look like there, and we'll go ahead and test it out. Awesome. Then if we take a look at our logs here, you can see that we kicked it off 6 minutes ago, which is good because the deployment happened, which took about a minute, and then it waited 5 minutes because of our scheduler, and it kicked off the job. Job executed, started job, no mentions found, and then it finished the job. because it didn't found no mentions, replied none. And with that, we're going to put a green checkbox by Railway. And so what I want to do here is I actually want to go and let's go test this out. So let me go to my other data independent account here, which I don't use quite as much, and I don't want to bother anybody. So I'm going to find a tweet with a whole bunch of views. And so this has 400,000 views, 80 replies. Yeah, and this looks like a juicy tweet too. So I'm going to do Silicon Oracle. And let's do Silicon Oracle. And I'll go ahead and click reply here. So now that this reply has happened, what it's going to do is it's going to wake up in another 5 minutes. It's going to read, oh, hey, I have one more mention. And then it's going to say, let me go get the conversation tweet up above. So it's going to grab this text. It's going to pass that to the language model. And then it's going to generate a response. And then it's then going to reply to this one. So actually, let me click on this one so we can wait for it. You may be wondering, can prompt injection happen on here? 100%. I did not take enough safeguards to stop this. So I would actually be amused if somebody actually tried to do it, and please go for it if you want. All right, so job executed, just kicked off a job, starting a job, which is sweet. And we don't see the finished yet because it's actually thinking, fingers crossed, and making the API call to, let me put myself just a little lower here. Let me move this thing. Finished job. Great. Found one and it replied to one with 0 errors. That's cool. Let's go take a look at the response here. Reload. And there it is. And remember, this is the story of how I, PhD student, OpenAI $5,000 might lose access. The classic tale of AI dependency and financial woe. In the future, PhD students will barter their firstborn for API access. Wow. While OpenAI reigns supreme over academia. That's a little harsh. I may want to do some content moderation on that, but I hope this person's okay. Rodolfo, if you need support, please let's chat. The last cool thing I wanted to show you here was this is the deploy that we're currently on, which is on the success there. But let's say, for example, I wanted to change this to every 6 minutes. You know, whatever small change I wanted to do. And what I want to show you here is I'm going to do another git status, and you can see here that I've made changes. Yep. Okay. So git add all, git commit, changing interval time, and then I'm going to git push origin main. It's going to ask for my password, and I'm going to push that up. So now it went all the way up to GitHub, and check this out. Over on the Railway side, oh, it just noticed a new push that was over there. So it's been automatic deployments, which is pretty cool. Now, once this one builds successfully, it will get rid of this one and it'll remove it and put it down in a history. So you only have one build that's out there in the first place. But with that, let's add our green checkbox to Twitter. So now we have that deployed and now it responds to tweets. So I'm actually going to leave this up. Quick side note, if you wanted to actually try this bot out yourself, you can go to Twitter and type in Silicon Oracle into any tweet. Just make sure it's a reply to a parent tweet and you can see what happens with it. I'm going to leave this up as long as API costs are still manageable. But if you wanted to clean up your project here, you could go over to your settings on your project and you could delete the service from all environments and you won't incur any more costs on there. Keep in mind rate limits all over the place, but specifically on the Twitter side. And keep in mind your OpenAI costs. So that is how we make a Twitter reply bot. Now, this is an extremely easy example because we just took a tweet and passed it through a prompt template to get a simple output on the other end. Now, while there's endless characters you could do by switching up your prompt, how cool would it be if you did a vector store? Or maybe you did some question and answering. Or maybe you summarized an entire tweet thread for somebody because it was too long or something like that. That would actually be kind of cool. And I haven't yet seen that example on there. So I'm really interested to see what other kind of tweet bots you come up with. And please tag me on those because I'd love to see them and help promote your work. That's all we have for today. We'll see you later.